Hi, I've chosen The Colors of Us by Karen Katz for my book and build. The Colors of Us is a beautiful story that talks about how we all look different and how we are unique and beautiful. Karen Katz wants us to realize that people come in many different skin colors, and she wants us to take a closer look at all of these shades. And she does that by comparing them to foods to help readers paint a vivid picture of those colors. In this book, a 7-year-old girl called Lena decides to draw pictures of her friends, but just can't seem to get their colors right. So she goes to her mother, an artist, for some help. Her mom shows her that mixing different amounts of blue, yellow, red, a little white, and a little black can make the different shades she needs to match her friends' skin tones.
For my book and build activity, we are going to play around with foods. So you can see here I've got some coffee, some oatmeal, some almonds. If we go down below, I've got mixed nut butter, ground pepper, Skippy peanut butter, powdered peanut butter. I've got some dal lentils here, Nutella, and this is just stuff that I literally pulled out of the cabinet behind me that you saw open up. We've got organic peanut butter, some yellow lentils that I've pulled out here, ground cinnamon, turmeric, cocoa powder. I've got some brown sugar from Okinawa, from brown cane sugar, star anise. I brought out my colored pencils just to kind of demonstrate how many more colors there are, how much nuance there is in the colors that comprise our skin tones. We've got coconut milk, brown sugar, all kinds of goodies here. Again, just pulled from my cabinet. And the reason why I chose to do something of this ilk with these types of ingredients is because I wanted something easy for families to do during the time of coronavirus for distance learning. And you can see here that I've put together a palette with a sample of all the different spices and foods that we have. And this is something that you can do as an adult helper, helping to reach those spices down from the cabinet, helping your child put together a variety of different options. And I would also recommend wearing an apron or an old t-shirt because I am just covered in a bunch of things that are already staining, and thankfully that's okay. But just to let you know that when you're doing food crafting, things can get a little messy and you want to play around. So this is kind of the before, and then we'll go into some of the things that we can make after.
So here you can see some of the supplies or ingredients that I've pulled from my cupboard, with the exception of the colored pencils. Those are out just to show you sort of the limitations that we have in the typical hues that may show up in our colored pencils or our markers that we have on hand. So in order to expand the different hues of yellow, red, brown, olive, the nuance that we have in skin tones, I pulled out the ingredients that you see here. And then I created kind of this palette with the help of my little helper. And we pulled out a little bit of all the spices and the food ingredients just to create some visual interest to what we can pick and choose to make our final product. And you can see there's a paper plate in the second image, and that's for the mixing of the spices and the creation. So my little helper here did a self-portrait, and you can see the star anise for the hair, coffee beans for the eyes, cinnamon stick nose, and we have some chili powder mix for the mouth. And the skin tone was made actually by mixing a bunch of different spices, but what you can see in the photo to the left is some turmeric and some cocoa and some cinnamon all mixed in together. Now, in looking at the UTech process, the model framework shows using, tinkering, experimenting, and creating. And so, in this activity, the using is using something for its intended purpose. So, basically, the spices and food items selected are for cooking, baking, ultimately eating. The tinkering phase is where we begin to pull out the different ingredients, the foods and the spices, and just fiddling around and making some of our own personal changes. So, taking out a spoonful of nut butter, maybe taking out a spoonful of Nutella and bringing those together. And then when we experiment, this is the beginnings of a purposeful design of something new. So this is where failure and success occurs, trial and error. So what happens when I mix chili powder and cinnamon? What does that look like? What does it taste like? What does it smell like? What about cocoa chili powder and cinnamon? I bet that would taste good as hot cocoa. And then in creating, that's where a unique result is formed. So in our instance, we've completed our lovely self portrait using the food crafts. So here is just a little written synopsis of the activity. I've called it Spice It Up. And this is something that you could publish on your website to go with the book if you're doing a book and build. This would make a great activity to do at home, especially because as much as I love food crafting, it can be really challenging to do in schools with food allergies, particularly with primary students. The older the students get, the more they can take personal responsibility for the foods that they eat, like in high school. But for our elementary students, even our cafeteria has two separate lines for getting the food, those with allergies and those without. So I would suggest, and I would use this making activity at home and with adult supervision. It could be an older sibling, a caregiver, parent, um, just to have some help with reaching down the spices and the jars. And also, there's a mess to clean up at the end. So, for some help with that. Um, I have added an embedded video of me doing the read aloud for my YouTube channel. I'm going to go ahead and just skip that. Um, and I'll add the embedded link as just like a bonus if you wanted to kind of read the book for yourself. And then finally, our snowflake making. So I had a little bit of fun with this, but I also really struggled. The pink snowflake is my final snowflake, where I chose to do what I thought were Christmas trees and some hearts. And the blue one was kind of a mess if I look at it in detail. I cut open one of my things in there, so that was a mess. And then the white one, I used that computer program. I thought that was really cool, where you could sketch out um, the image that you want to cut out, and then it automatically removes it, the negative space, and then shows you what it looks like. So I tried something where I drew on it and cut it out with the white snowflake. So that was kind of a fun activity. Um, I had a lot of fun with this book and build, and I'm looking forward to making some more.